Hi, everybody. Are we ready? Yeah. My name is Rose Salseda, and I'm a Ph.D. candidate in art history, and I'm also the Associate Director of the U.S. Latino Art Forum. I'm also a fourth-generation Mexican-American, but the first generation in my family to attend college. I mention this latter bit of information because for a person like me to get where I am today, a complex network of cross-racial solidarity, allyship, and mentorship had to be in place. And I speak with you this morning to recognize the importance of these structures for the future of Latino art. These structures are a result of the decades of hard work and advocacy that veteran activists, artists, and scholars championed. Given the few minutes that I have, though, I'm going to speak from my own experience as a beneficiary of these structures to paint a clear picture of the support I needed to see me through the faulty educational pipeline that Dr. Zavala described earlier. I'll also highlight a few initiatives I have made in an effort toward building a more solid ground for the field of Latino art. As an undergraduate student at Cal State Fullerton, two professors were critical in my development as a young scholar: the Chicano Studies professor, Dr. Alejandro Gradilla, and the art history professor, Dr. Joanna Roach. In Dr. Gradilla's Chicano Studies course, he taught the history of African diaspora in Mexico, an uncommon topic for the discipline. Yet he saw the importance that this history could hold for his Latino and Chicano students. Because I grew up in South Central Los Angeles, a predominantly African American and Latino community, the history of those two groups had been of long interest to me, yet Dr. Gradilla's course opened my eyes to the legacy of shared roots between two groups whose histories and experiences are often discussed as completely separate or in some cases as in conflict. With the exception of this course, there weren't any other classes at my university that addressed the topic of African diaspora in Latin America, let alone the intersecting histories of African Americans, Latinos, and Afro-Latinos. But my undergraduate advisor, Dr. Roach, encouraged my interests and assured me that these topics were worthy of study, that they had value, even if the institution didn't recognize it. So with Dr. Roach's support, I began self-directed research and I conducted an independent study with Dr. Gradilla. I then used this research to apply to a predoctoral fellowship that Dr. Roach brought to my attention. I received the award, which provided funding for grad school applications. As Dr. Zavala noted earlier, it was and still is rare to find art history programs with faculty who specialize in Latino art. So I applied to programs that had faculty who specialized in Black, Latin American, and African diaspora art. I also used the fellowship funds to visit the University of Texas at Austin. UT was my top grad school pick because it had the art history professor, Dr. Cherie Smith, who specialized in Black art and the politics of race. And the university also had many other faculty outside of art history who specialized in Black and Latino studies. Dr. Smith, who is also a person of color, and the ever-dedicated ally, took keen interest in my background and research. And when I received acceptances from 7 grad programs, she worked hard to match funding offers. Over the years, I formed professional relationships with many of the Black and Latino faculty at UT, partnering with them on projects, conference panels, and committees involving scholarly topics on race and art, as well as initiatives involving diversity. The cross-racial and cross-disciplinary support and mentorship that I found at Cal State Fullerton and sought after at UT have been critical to my growth as a young scholar and enabled me to see that these support systems need to be recreated and expanded for others. So in 2015, after a 2-day scholarly session on Latino art history, which Dr. Zavala organized and which included about a dozen speakers, including me, she asked the group how we could continue our conversations on the need for advocacy and mentorship within the field. I immediately proposed the idea of forming a society, and as a group, we co-founded the U.S. Latino Art Forum. In 1 year, we have gained approximately 175 artists, faculty, museum staff, and student members. This is a big deal. This speaks to the interest and need for an academic and advocacy organization like ours. Our first major initiative as an organization occurred this past summer. I co-led a data collection project with fellow Ph.D. candidate Mary Thomas to uncover how Latino art fared at the annual conference of the College Art Association, the largest conference for the visual arts. We analyzed hundreds of paper abstracts and panel descriptions presented at CAA from 2012 to 2016 and found that the meeting featured on average just one session and only 7 papers on Latino art per year. And alarmingly, the 2013 and 2014 conferences, they featured 0, absolutely no sessions on Latino art. And this is at a conference with nearly 200 panels, workshops, and events every year. We need to increase the presence of Latino art at CAA to foster the recognition of the field by the art historians and museum professionals who comprise a majority of CAA's membership base. The organization's conference is also where artists and specialists go for professional development and job interviews. But if the field of Latino art is not recognized in an inclusive and representative way, this leaves far too much to speculate for our future. Mary and I went on to co-write a call to action that the U.S. Latino Art Forum published and distributed to its members last month. And this is a headline that we received from Hyperallergic, written by the art critic Seth Rodney, who I recommend. He was right there. And I recommend you read his pieces on Hyperallergic because he is one of the few, if not only, art critics out there who writes about the problems of representation in the art world. And so Mary and I, we wrote this call to action and we shared some of our findings with our members and we urged them to submit paper proposals on Latino art for the upcoming 2017 conference. In addition, Dr. Zavala, Mary and I met with and wrote to CAA representatives to help push forward our advocacy efforts. Currently, we are on track to becoming an affiliated society with CAA, and they have also granted our request for a business meeting at the conference in February. And this is also a big deal because they don't normally give these business meeting spaces to organizations that are unaffiliated. And so these might be small victories, yet they're just one step of many more to follow that will help secure a vibrant pipeline of practitioners, scholars, and curators of Latino art. And with that said, before I conclude my talk, I'd like to leave you with a list of my colleagues, all the current PhD students and PhD candidates across the US who specialize in Latino art and visual culture. We are a small group, but there has never been any other time in history where we have had this many Latino art specialists getting doctorates. And I'd like you to remember our names. Like, go ahead, take out your phones and take a picture. This is important. You see, we're the next generation of professors, writers, curators, and art administrators, but we need support in order to acquire those positions. We need people like you, members of this audience, to fund and invest in the completion of our educations. Invite us to give lectures at your institutions, to write for your exhibition catalogs, to guest curate your shows. You won't regret it, because as Latino art specialists, we are inherently interdisciplinary scholars armed with knowledge and methodologies for Latino art that are based in numerous disciplines. Furthermore, especially those of us who are in art history programs, we are simultaneously versed in the fields of American art, contemporary art, Latin American art, and Black art because Latino art comprises all of these histories. So hire us to ensure that you have staff and faculty with the necessary expertise to address the growing and diverse Latino demographics and increasingly global world. Without us, the trained historians, educators, and curators of Latino art institutions will continue to struggle to acquire and retain Latino patronage and membership. Without us, the Latino art community will also continue to lack the fundamental infrastructure needed to ensure that their history is recorded, archived, and taught to future generations. Together, in solidarity, we can guarantee a robust future for Latino art and see that the next generation of students have the necessary people in place to provide the type of guidance and mentorship that I have been lucky enough to have found thus far. And just before I conclude, I want to bring up these statistics. So 8 of us are PhD candidates, meaning that we're going to graduate within the next 1 to 3 years. But what's going to happen to us? Are we going to be able to secure positions? And I'm not sure. And we really need, I mean, obviously, as funding institutions or academic institutions, we often think in the long run, in 10 years or whatever, but things need to change now in order to make sure that like we don't fall through those cracks post-doctorate. And then also, you can see that 9 of us are in art history programs across the US, and that's a major big deal. Like, art history programs thus far have been very close to Latino art. And so given that there's 9 of us, like, please applaud us and hire us. And then also, I also want to point out this other thing. You'll notice that we have 5 Latino art specialists in Chicano studies at UCLA, but there are 0 in the art history department. So that's something also to think about. So I leave you with these questions. Thank you again. My name is Salseda.